Sorry, thank you. I have a big voice, so I didn't even know it wasn't going. Welcome, Washington County. We're so glad you're here tonight. I want to introduce to you as we get started our sister or brother counties. We have Richard Gank from Iron County. He's the secretary up there of their county. And then Boyd Corey is from Kane County, and he is the chair in Kane County. So let's give them a big round of applause and welcome. Do you guys want to say anything? Okay, all right. Thank you for being with us. We're going to start our debate tonight with a prayer by Joe Elison, and then Boyd will lead us in the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered here tonight as fellow citizens and brothers and sisters. We're thankful for this wonderful opportunity to come together and listen to some wonderful candidates for the upcoming congressional district. We are grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy in this land. We're grateful for the miracle and for thy love and for the blessings that have poured out upon us. We ask a blessing at this time that as we listen to the different points of view and different ideas tonight, that we'll be able to think and have thy inspiration to help us select the best candidate so that we can be well represented back in Washington, D.C. We pray for those individuals who will be speaking to us. Wilt thou please bless their minds to be open and be clear, that they'll be able to verbalize their true heart and their intentions, that it'll be a positive and wonderful experience. Again, we thank thee for the many blessings we've received at thy hand, and do express our gratitude and love to thee. In this we pray, in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please rise.
All right, thank you. I want to thank a couple of people before we get started. First off, our executive team. I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Lisa Sandberg, and I'm chair of the Washington County Republican Party. I'd like to introduce you to the rest of my team, who are absolutely amazing. Vice Chair Barry Sawyer, stand. Secretary Brandon Morgan. Treasurer Lori Terry. District 72, Vice Chair Ray Justice, I think he's excused tonight. District 73, Kimball Willard in the back running our technology. Big thank you to him for that as well. District 74, Jody Valentine. And District 75, Kristen Norton. Thank you, Kristen. All right, thank you. There's a lot of other work going on behind the scenes, and I appreciate them as well. This doesn't happen with one person, and we've had the wonderful opportunity, that's not the word I want to say, but anyway, we've been able to work with the Elephant Club, our state Elephant Club, and I've loved having them help us and sponsor this debate. So next, I will turn the time to Seth Sunderland, who is our president. While he's coming up, I want you to know that we've gone to bat for and asked for a southern chapter of the Elephant Club, and that's going to be coming this fall. So we're excited. Seth was very open to giving us an opportunity to be a part of the Elephant Club as well. So we'll give you more information as that comes. Seth?
Thank you, Lisa. The Elephant Club is very excited to help sponsor this debate, this convention debate. The Elephant Club is an auxiliary fundraising organization of the state Republican Party. So we're here to We're here to support the party and the county parties, making sure that GOP candidates get elected, that state GOP has funds to run conventions, do messaging, and promote conservative values. So before we get going here, we wanted to go through the rules that we've sent out to all the candidates and got their input, and everybody's agreed to. So in terms of the main rules, there will be 2 sessions of this debate. The first session will consist of 6 candidates. The second session will consist of 5 candidates. We will conduct a drawing up here in front of everybody, which will be conducted by Vice Chairman Barry Sawyer with a number on a stick. And so the sticks 1 through 6 will be in the first session. The candidates drawing sticks 7 through 11 will be in the second session. In terms of time, each candidate will be given 1 minute for their opening remarks. To answer questions, they will be given 1 minute, and closing statements will be 1 minute. If a candidate goes over time, that time the moderator will step in and cut them off and ask them to move on to the next person. If a candidate refers to another candidate in a negative or derogatory manner, the candidate that was referred to will have a chance at the moderator's discretion to have 30 seconds to rebut what was said. In terms of the questions were sourced by the delegates. So many of you here probably submitted questions. Those questions were reviewed by our moderator, Rob Axon, in partnership and with input from Lisa and the Washington County team and the Iron County team. And so these questions reflect the questions of the people here and the people who will be participating in the convention on Saturday. So now we will turn the time over to Barry to go ahead, or back to Lisa, and then we'll conduct the drawing.
Thank you, Seth. I really am excited about that Southern chapter. It's going to be awesome. Before we bring Barry and the candidates up, how many of you attended or watched the debate from 2 nights ago? Oh, that is fantastic. So just so that you know, it's not going to be the same questions. So it's a whole different series of questions. So hopefully you get a really good feel for the candidates. All right, Barry, let's go ahead and bring the candidates up. We're doing it a little different than the North, so. All right, here you go, Barry.
So all I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to state your name and then grab out of the bucket and say the number, and I will repeat the name and the number because we're going to write it down and make sure everyone can see it with the camera, okay? So just go ahead.
This a trick question?
Yeah. Well, how about your name?
Scott Reber.
All right. You're tall. Say it out loud.
Number 1.
Scott's number 1.
I'm Jordan Hess. Number 2.
Jordan Hess is number 2. These are not in order.
Just went like this.
Jordan has number 2. Here, where's number 2? All right, Celeste.
Celeste Malloy.
Number 4.
Celeste is number 4.
Greg Hughes.
7.
Greg Hughes, number 7. So if you're going to be here, anybody that's not the first 6, 7 or above, just go ahead and sit down and I'll take you back.
I'm sorry, what was the question? It's Bruce Huff, and I am number 8.
Number 8, Bruce Huff.
Am I following Greg?
You following him?
You can hold it up high.
Yeah, I am. I don't know if I can hold that high. Go ahead.
Quinn Denning.
10. Quinn Denning, number 10.
Bill Hoster. Number 9.
Bill Hoster, number 9. Visit them. See, it didn't go in order like that.
Scott Hatfield. Number 5.
Scott Hatfield, number 5.
Henry Eyring, number 11.
Henry Iron, number 11.
Kathleen Anderson, number, I don't know what that is, is that a 9 or a 6?
No one else has 6, right?
Okay.
So it's a 6.
Okay.
Kathleen has 6. Sorry. Usually the line is
3. Becky Edwards. Becky Edwards, number 3.
Becky Edwards, number 3. Okay. So with when your numbers set up 1 through 6. We have it correct? Okay. Everyone just turn on their mic real quick and say hi. Make sure it works.
Test.
Test, test.
Test. Test.
Republican.
Scott Reber. Hello, Scott Reber.
Okay, now, as we always do, because we're Republicans and we don't do things for free, we have our donation bucket. You can either put cash in or scan our Venmo and send us a Venmo if you'd like. We'll pass this around. Lori, do you want to come start this for us? She's clearing the back, but I'll do it in just a minute. Let me introduce to you our amazing new state GOP party chair, Rob Axon. He was just elected. Come on up. He was just elected in April at our state organizing convention and got thrown into a special election. And we all know how that is, don't we? Here in Washington County, we've held 6 of them. So we are excited to have him here, excited to have him moderate for us. He's done a great job with the questions, so we will let him go. Just so that you're aware, the 5 candidates that are in the second session have been taken to a room where they've been sequestered. They don't have their cell phones on them, so they can't hear the questions. When it's over, these 6 will go to the same room and be sequestered during the second half. So we are ready to go, Rob.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and to the Washington County, Kane County, and Iron County parties, thank you for your partnership. And also, I have to mention the partnership that we had up north. I was pleased to see how many of you put your hand up when the question was asked, did you watch the first debate? So as I said then, and I'll reiterate it now, I see the last 2 days as being the intermission. So now we get the second half of the debate, and we get a chance to see all of these wonderful candidates. As was mentioned, we'd ask that you hold your applause until the very end so that we have a chance to go through and hear the folks and how they want to respond. But very much appreciate all of you joining us. As Republicans, we stand up when something needs to be done. And when something's hard or something needs to be addressed, we don't use excuses as an excuse to not do anything. Instead, we lean into it. And so special elections, like Lisa has done down here 6 times, I guess, on the Washington County level, as a state, we're ready to do this to make sure that Utah's 2nd congressional district is filled. So very happy to do that. Now, candidates, you all see where the timing is, right? I want to make sure you all see it. Okay, so that is your time. If you get to the point where you're
last debate, and it was horrible. But hello, Dixie. Yes, that's what I want. This is rebel territory, and it's also Reber territory. So I was born and raised in Utah. St. George is where my mother's from. My dad, he was born in Mesquite, so we'll give him a little break there. So I spent a lot of time in this district, and I could tell you stories for a long time. I can tell you about how in Dugway, I got my nose broken during a basketball game that just I will never forget. but I did win state in soccer in Wendover, and that was something I also will never forget. Another thing that I won't forget is in Circleville, I helped birth my first calf in my life, and I will never forget that. That was an all-night affair. The other thing I did was work on an alfalfa farm outside of Cedar City for my cousin.
Thank you, Scott. Short and sweet, right? So now to...
Hey, delegates, thank you for being here tonight. My name is Jordan Hess. I was born in the district, 7th-generation Davis County boy. I currently live in the district right here in Washington County. My house is 11 miles away. I'm excited to be here tonight. I've got the right experience for this job. I spent the first 7 years of my career in Washington, D.C., crafting innovative conservative policy for some of the greatest conservative minds of our time. I worked for Senator Mike Lee, Senator Ted Cruz, Senators Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton, and others. I took that expertise and went across the street to the Heritage Foundation, where for 3 years I was the director of coalition building. I would fly across the country, advising governors and state legislators on how to implement these conservative reforms at the state level. I then made my way back home to Utah. I currently live and work right here in Washington County. I know this district from north to south. I am one of you. When the other 5 members of our delegation will fly in and out of the Salt Lake Airport commuting to D.C., I will be flying out of the St. George Regional Airport. It's time to send someone from southern Utah to D.C. Thank you.
Hold your...
Becky Edwards, I'm running for Congress, and delegates, I so appreciate your being here tonight. I am a lifelong Utahn. I had the great privilege of serving in the Utah House of Representatives for 10 years. And delegates, just like you, Republican delegates, continued to elect me over and over and over and over, not once or twice, but 5 times, because they saw in my service a commitment to them, a willingness to listen to their challenges and hopes and dreams, a dedication to working as hard as I could to represent them, and a commitment to this state that I love. I have a legacy of public service in this area. I deeply love this community. I live in North Salt Lake now. My husband's family is from Beaver, so right in the heart of CD2. Legacy of public service, a dedication to the people and the principles embedded in the Republican Party right here in Utah, and a deep commitment to America and its prosperity.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you so much.
Celeste.
It's so good to be here in St. George. This is where I started my legal career. This is where I got involved in policy work. This is where I went to work for the Northern Corridor, for the Desert Tortoise Habitat Conservation Plan renewal. This city is the reason that I'm standing here today. I've spent my adult life in District 2. I've been working with and for the people of District 2 for my entire adult life, but being here in St. George on this stage making my case to you feels really special tonight. It's really easy to stand up here and throw out red meat talking points. What's more difficult, and what I want to do, is be here with you and listen to you and go to work on the things that you care about, because that's the only reason I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Scott.
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Hatfield, and I'm happy to be here in the land of Dixie. I know you guys feel really left out and disconnected from Salt Lake and from Washington, D.C., and it's difficult times. And I'm up here throwing my hat in the ring as a self-funded candidate. I have no backing. I'm not the establishment. I am one of you guys. I grew up under the poverty line, with my family struggling to pay bills, feed themselves, and put a house over my head. I want to listen to you. That is why I'm here. I want to represent you, and I want to stand with you in Washington, D.C. My door will be open to you. I will come here often. My family was pioneers to Utah, but just because I'm from California doesn't mean that I am a strong constitutionalist and conservative. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Kathleen.
Good evening. I'm Kathleen Anderson. I feel like I'm the most different candidate on the stage. I'm a wife. My husband is Rob. He is a retired colonel from the United States Air Force. He flew the F-15 for 22 years. I'm also a mother of 4 grown children, and we are expecting our first grandchild this coming October. We are a traditional Utah family. We have 2 dogs, a cat. We're a God-fearing, faith-promoting family. We have a sign in our kitchen that says, "You can't serve God if you worry about offending the devil." What's facing our country today is more to me than right versus left. It's right versus wrong. And I love my family. I love this country. I feel that it's lost its way. I'm going back to serve, to fight for as long as I can, as hard as I can, until ready to pass that baton when I know that I've done all that I can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. So as a reminder, just like we did at the other debate 2 nights ago up north, each of these questions will be asked, and they are the same question each round for everybody, with the exception that one round of questioning will be specific to the candidate. So I'll make sure to make note of that when we start that. But with this, we're going to be having the first question, and Jordan, you're going to be kicking us off. If elected to Congress, your constituents will expect your tireless service on their behalf. Please provide specific decisions, experiences, and traits you will rely on to be effective. How are you prepared for the policy work and relationships needed to be successful?
Great question, Rob. One of my strengths is that I am a people person. I am a bridge builder, a coalition builder. That is why the Heritage Foundation hired me as their director of coalition relations, where I would go across the country building consensus around good conservative policy. Policy, mind you, that has been implemented in multiple states. I will go to Washington, D.C. with that character trait. Someone who will roll up my sleeves, put my head down, get to work solving some of our nation's biggest problems, and doing that by finding like-minded people who will join hands with me and make it happen. I will stay connected to you. Like I said, I live here. I will maintain my home here. You will see me at your farmers markets. You will see me in your church. You will see me at Costco. You will see me at the store. I want to stay connected. That is my pledge to you. And to those of you who live in the north, I will make you feel like I live in your county. That is my commitment to you as a bridge builder and a relationship builder. Thanks.
You know, one of the great things about running for office is you have a chance to be in people's homes, in their schools, in their places of business, on their farms. And for 18 months, I did that exact thing all across the state. What I learned was that there are a lot more similarities of people in Utah, north, south, east, west, than I think sometimes the media presents to us. I learned that people care about their families, they care about their businesses, they care about providing a prosperous future for their children and grandchildren. Those are the things that I'm committed to. I absolutely love having political engagement with folks. When I served in the House, every Saturday during the legislative session for 10 years, we opened our living room up. People came in, constituents, people from the community, and we'd sit around on the couch, talk about issues. Sometimes there'd be complaints, suggestions, ideas. I loved that opportunity to sit and reason with people. That's been my approach to leadership. It's what I will continue to do on this level because I deeply value relationships and commitment to you.
The question is, how do I know that I'm prepared to do the work that it takes to be a member of Congress and to represent a large district? I know I'm ready to do it because I've been doing it. From the time that I talked about that I was here in St. George working for the Utah Association of Counties, I've driven all of the roads in this district. I've been in all of the towns, all of the counties. I've sat down with people and talked to them about their problems. Then I've gone to work on their problems, from the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument to the Great Salt Lake to wild horses in the West Desert. So I've had 7 years of training doing exactly what you're asking now if I can do. Can I show up in all the towns? Yes. Can I listen to people and then go to work on the problems they're bringing me? Absolutely yes. And that's what I want to do. That's why I'm here.
Well, I'm the youngest guy up here and for candidacy. And don't let that fool you. I have the honor and courage and commitment, the things that I learned in the Navy for 5 years while I served overseas. I know the ultimate price of freedom. I know what it's like to take the oath to serve and defend this country. I've held people as they died. I will go to Washington and I will stand as an immovable barrier against the federal government and your constitutional rights. That's a promise. I will not sacrifice those things to them. It's going to be an uphill battle, and I will stand alone if I have to. But I am also a people person, much like Jordan. I will go to them, I will meet with people, and I will fight for you, and that is my promise to you.
I was raised on a farm. I know what hard work is. My husband was raised on a cattle ranch. He knows what hard work is. That's not something that the Andersons shy from. It's who we are. It's how we were raised. I have no delusions of running for Congress. I'm not going because I care about tea times or tea parties or lobbyist dinners. That's not the motivation for me. It's because I love my country, I love my family, and I'm willing to sacrifice and do what it takes to represent you there and to stop the progression and the decline that we all see happening. I hardly recognize our nation from just the past 10 years. I used to wonder how societies could fall into decline like they did. I don't wonder anymore. I'm going to fight, make no mistake about it. I'm not a show pony. I am a workhorse, and that's what I will do, and that is my pledge to you.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to get into the second question, and Becky, oh, so sorry about that. Scott, all you.
It was close. So one thing that I pride myself on from my work in Congress, my 10 years in D.C., was that I knew exactly what was going on in the district. I spent the time and did the legwork, driving hundreds of miles to cross the states to find out what was going on. Now, it's not easy. How many of you here, by raise of hands, how many of you wrote your federal representatives and did not get a reply? Look at that. I promise to each and every one of you, if you write me, I will respond thoughtfully. And if I don't, kick me out. The other thing is, I will have a two-pronged approach to make sure that everything will happen, to make sure I stay in touch. A good representative represents you, and they need to know what your needs are. They need to be sure that you know what services are there for from your federal representatives. And that is why I will focus on every single county. If I am your nominee, I will be in every single county by the coming month. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you for your patience with me. Going to the next question. So, Becky, while the Constitution does not require that a member of Congress live within the district they represent, please answer whether your primary residence is in CD2 and how this would affect your ability to represent the needs of the district.
Even though my answer is short, it's yes. I'm going to take all of this 1 minute to tell you why I love CD2. I've lived in the CD2 for 30 years. 10 of those years, I had the great privilege, like I said, of serving the people of my community in both Salt Lake and Davis counties. We've raised our 4 children there. In fact, I have 8 grandchildren who live in CD2. This is a community from top to bottom and side to side that means a lot. In the legislature, you're representing your own constituents, certainly, but every single committee you sit on. When I was on higher ed, I wasn't just concerned about the universities in my community, of which there were none. We're looking at the entire state. We're looking at higher ed. I was on transportation. I was chairing economic development and workforce services and cared deeply about workforce here in the southern part of this state and some of the challenges. I am deeply committed to this area, and I understand your issues because of my experience.
My primary residence is in Cedar City, right in the middle of the district. And I do think it's important that we have somebody representing this district who lives here. Surely there's enough homegrown talent in District 2 that we don't have to look outside the district to find somebody to represent us. I've spent my adult life in St. George, Beaver, and Cedar City. with one exception when I was in law school in Provo. And I would argue that that is an advantage to being a representative. And for the last 4 years, I've been working on behalf of CD2. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be flying out of southern Utah to go to Washington, D.C. And I'm happy to be representing the people who are in this room, the people I've known for years, the people I've worked with for years.
Unfortunately, I do not live in CD2. I am a resident of Utah. I only live a stone's throw away from this district. I only live outside of the district because of my wife. She's a college student at BYU, and I'm a college student at UVU. Our plans are to move back to this district. When I first moved to Utah to call it home, once I got out of the military, Farmington was my home. I know it. I love it. I've gone through all the hills there. I love the national parks. I love public lands. I utilize them almost every weekend. I love this state. I love this area. I am one of the few people that have made it out to Eskdale, Dugway, Vernon, Wendover, Grantsville. I've taken my time to go to the small communities because I care about this district. I've even come down to St. George, Cedar City, and Beaver on my own personal dime because I love this district.
When the Constitution was written and it delineated the requirements to run for Congress, the world moved at the speed of horse. And I'm sure it was difficult for members of Congress to get to and from their residences to the Capitol. Well, that's not the case anymore. I barely met the requirement for being 25 years old, but I had my birth. That's a joke. That's a joke. But it does not require that you live within the boundaries, which I do, because that's very important to me. But it's actually even more lenient than that. It just says to live within the state at the time of the election. Well, you have my promise that I will not only do I live in the district, but I will always live in the district as long as I represent that district, and I will come home every opportunity I can because this is my home and this is where my family is. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. While the Constitution does not require a member of Congress to live within the district they represent, please answer whether your primary residence is in CD2 and how this would affect your ability to represent the needs of the district.
We need somebody to represent us who lives in the district. I firmly believe in that, and I am completely committed to it. On the other hand, we also need somebody from the South. Never before have we had a representative who was from here, and it's high time that we had that. And so that's what I want. If it's not me, it better be one of the other candidates from here. So it is so important to be here because if this is where your family is, then every single thing that you deal with has to relate to them in relation to their community. Being part of the district is how you understand the issues. Now, I do not always live up in Salt Lake. I don't live in Enterprise. I don't live in all these other communities, but I promise you I will go to them regularly. And I want to stay in touch with you, and my door will always be open.
You're right, Rob. The Constitution doesn't require it, but out of 435 members of Congress, only 27 of them do not live in their district. I think it is important that we have a representative who can truly represent the people they live among. I am that person. Like I said, 7 generations deep, my roots go in Davis County, currently live in Washington County. After college, I actually lived in Mill Creek, which happens to be in the district as well. But when I am in Congress, everything I do will be with an eye toward this district and the needs of our district. I want to serve on the Natural Resources Committee. We have to protect our grazing rights. We have to protect our farmers and our ranchers that produce food security in this country. We have to protect our public lands. We have to protect our water. We need a representative who will support a water reuse system here in southern Utah. That is important to us. These are the issues that matter. Living in this district, knowing this district, will be a plus for all 800,000 who live in CD2. Thanks.
Hold your applause till the end, please. Thank you. We're going to be moving to the next question. Celeste, you're going to take this one first. Please provide specific examples of where you feel Congress and the federal government have overstepped their authority, and what will you do to counter that?
That is a great question. In fact, that's probably the most important question I'm going to answer tonight. I've talked to you guys on the phone for the last 2 weeks, and everybody who's asked me, what's the #1 reason you want to serve in Congress? This is my answer. Federal government overreach. I think the federal government is way too involved in your day-to-day lives. And I think it's the job of your representative in Congress to pry the federal government's fingers back off your lives and your livelihoods. It's the nature of bureaucracy to want to grow. We have a lot of alphabet soup agencies, and Congress needs to, through the power of the purse and through legislation, trim them back, get them back within the bounds that they were intended to be in, and protect you. The purpose of government is to protect the freedom of the people. And as a congresswoman, I would protect your freedoms by limiting the size of federal agencies and getting the federal government as far out of your lives as I possibly can. That's why I want to represent you. Thanks.
Well, I think most of us are going to say the same thing here. I believe in the Constitution, the 10th Amendment. Federal government is overstepping their boundaries. They're getting involved in your public lands. They're scaling them back. They're taking away grazing rights. They're going after our schools. They're going after our, they're turning our schools into indoctrination camps. They're pushing ideologies against even your city, most recently, just a few days ago, I believe. I plan to go there and stop it. Like I said, I will promise that I will be an immovable barrier against those constitutional rights. I will make sure the 10th Amendment is utilized. I will not vote for anything that oversteps things. I will go there and I will scale back many of the alphabet mafia, as they are called.
As an example of overreach, I can't think of anything that exemplifies that more than what our government did during COVID. And the move of so many to mandate vaccines for Americans. Even before COVID, I was anti-mandatory vaccines. To borrow a motto of the left, my body, my choice. And my husband's in an industry where they were mandating the vaccine. He's a commercial airline pilot. I think we can all agree that if not everyone can eat a peanut or gluten or dairy or take penicillin, that common sense dictates not everybody is going to react the same way to a vaccination. And so freedom is the right to say no. And that's what I intend to do every time the government steps out of its lane and into ours. Thank you.
For executive overreach, one thing that we aren't talking about is how Congress is disrespecting you. They're disrespecting you by not doing their jobs. I am sick and tired of our government not fixing things. So many things are overdone, and I can't stand it. I want to go there and make sure. If I was asking some of you today, if you could give a grade to how Congress is working, I would give them an F, because they are not doing their job. If they were, we would have a balanced budget. We wouldn't have to worry about debt limits. We wouldn't have to worry about immigration. We wouldn't have to worry about securing the border, because they would have done those jobs. That is what I will do when I go back to Congress. Make sure that they get back to work and try to get them to stay there until they do.
Article 1 of the Constitution clearly explains the role of Congress, and Congress has gotten away from that role. Our deficit and our debt is the biggest threat to our country. Our interest on our debt alone is about to become the largest line item in our federal budget. We will soon spend more on our interest than we spend on our military. This is wrong. Congress has the power of the purse. They need to flex their muscle, and when these agencies get out of line or they're politicized or weaponized against the American people, Congress has to withhold funding for these agencies. That is the one power that Congress has to keep the executive in check. Aside from that, I will ask myself 3 questions before casting any vote in Congress. The first question, does Article 1 give Congress the authority to act on this issue? If not, the answer is no. Number 2, will this vote I'm about to take power from the people or give power to the people? Anything that takes away your power, the residents of CD2, I will vote against. And number 3, will this vote that I'm about to take, can our country afford this policy? If the answer is no, you can count on me to not support that bill. It's important we understand the proper role of government.
Thank you, Jordan.
Everyone in this room and most Americans can agree on one thing. Congress is broken. They're not doing their job. The discussion that we've had recently about the debt ceiling should never have happened. Long before we get to that discussion, long before Republicans are trying to negotiate and work on this in good faith with our colleagues, we should have months before and years before showed fiscal restraint. The people who are being impacted on this are everyday Americans, everyday Utahns, people in this room who are, spending more at the grocery store, at the gas station. This matters. This is not a time for Congress to hold off and be lack of courage for answering these questions. When I served, in Utah, we're required to balance a budget. It doesn't mean it's easy. It means we do the hard work. We have to say no to people. We have to say no to good ideas, but we do it because we care
Thank you,
about
Becky.
Utah.
We're now going to move to the candidate-specific questions. So for each of these, it will be candidate-specific. Celeste, did we cut you off?
I started the last round.
Okay, that's what I thought. You looked at me for just a second. I thought, oh, man, I've gone and done it again. So, Scott, we're going to be starting with you. So, Scott Hatfield. During his time in Congress, Representative Stewart was known to extensively travel the district. If elected to Congress, how would your style, approach, and focus assist you in getting to know your constituents? Give specifics of what you will do.
Well, first off, as soon as my wife is done with college, we will be moving to the district. That is a promise to you guys. That way I can represent you the way that you guys deserve. 2, I've already done this. I've been in people's houses. Like I said, I've traveled to Dugway, I've gone to Wendover, I've gone to Vernon, I've gone to Grantsville, I've been down here, I've been to Beaver. That is my plan. I want to come to your dinner table. I want to meet with you on an individual basis. I want to hold town halls in your communities. I want to ensure that you guys have a voice. Because right now, as I've mentioned before, Salt Lake is out of touch with you. Washington is out of touch with you. I'm one of the few people here that knows what that's been in the military, that's lived under the poverty line, that has struggled. I'm one of the only self-funded candidates here. And my promise to you is I will go to you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Some delegates have expressed that they have not seen you out on the campaign trail. What approach have you taken to campaigning, and how have you tried to touch base with all of the delegates in CD2?
I'm actually glad that you asked me that question. Thank you. I filed to run for this seat a week ago, and I have a job. I work in a small, locally owned brick and mortar business at home, and I made a commitment to be there. I manage this store. And as you can imagine, most of the employees in the store are young, and they quit. We had another one quit on Tuesday. They graduate from high school and college, and they take off on vacations. And the owner of my business is a 77-year-old woman. And I think it would have shown an incredible lack of integrity for me just to quit and to leave her high and dry. We're lucky this business is still in business after COVID, when so many of the businesses next to us were shut down and never came back. But that is the level of commitment that I will show to you if you elect me to represent you. I take it very seriously. Thank you.
Scott, what do you consider the biggest failure or mistake to come from both Senator Lee and Senator Romney, if anything, during their time of service? How would you be different?
Wow. Well, that's a good question. No, I got good answers. So starting first off, Mitt Romney. He was the only Republican in the House and the Senate to vote to impeach Donald Trump. That alone was a huge mistake for Utah. And that is something I totally would not have done. That was out of line. Second, Mike Lee, he just got kicked off the Commerce Committee. Now, that is a very important committee to be on. It's an A committee that has a lot of influence. And because he tried to oust Mitch McConnell, which I'm not saying that's good or bad, he has his faults, I'm just saying that that was something that I would not have done. So thanks.
Jordan, what is your position regarding term limits, and how, if at all, will you hold yourself to any limit?
I'm a supporter of term limits. I don't think that our founders ever intended for public service to be a career. I've never held elected office other than I was vice chairman of the Utah Republican Party. I was in my 3rd year when I had to step down to run for this. That is a volunteer position. I will not make a career out of this. I believe that you can go in, roll up your sleeves, have a fresh set of eyes, a fresh perspective, and find actual solutions to some of our nation's biggest problems. And once you feel like you've contributed, that you've represented what the people who elected you sent there to do, you can step away and go back into civil life. So this would require members of Congress to fire themselves, because I think it would take an amendment to force term limits. However, here's an idea. Why not pass a bill that doesn't apply to current members of Congress? And once they're all gone, then we have term limits in place. But I will term limit myself. I don't intend to make a career out of this.
Becky, you have been vocal regarding your defense and support of Joe Biden during the 2020 election. While your opposition to President Trump was likely a factor in that decision, knowing what you know now during the Biden presidency, do you regret that decision? How can folks living under the policies of this administration trust you appreciate how bad things have become?
This is a great question because it's an opportunity to debunk a myth. When you have a question about someone, the best thing to do is go straight to them. I was not a vocal supporter of Joe Biden. During the presidential election in 2020, my husband and I were serving an LDS mission in American Samoa. We were there during COVID. We started serving beginning in May of 2019, and we didn't come home till January of 2021. I participated in encouraging civic engagement from the people that we knew who were still here in the States. I encourage people to place a vote because I care about every voice counting. Now, let me tell you what, I had some concerns. I had some concerns about one of the candidates, and my voice did lend to a different candidate for that vote. I have been extremely disappointed with the Biden administration and regret that.
Celeste, you are currently working for Representative Stewart. What motivated you to run for this seat, and if elected, how will you be different from your current boss?
That's a great question. The first part of it's not exactly true. I no longer work for Congressman Stewart. I had to resign in order to run. But I did spend the last 4 years working for him. And sorry, you asked what I would do differently. Did you also ask what I would do the same?
No.
Okay. So ideologically, I align very well with Congressman Stewart. We don't have the same background. We don't have all the same experiences. I've never written a best-selling book, and I don't have any world records for flying around the world. I'm sorry. I know that's a disappointment. But the things I would do differently would start with committees. I want to be on the House Natural Resources Committee because it's important to the state and it's what my strong suits are. I want to be on the House Armed Services Committee because it's important to the state and it's important to the district. Those aren't the same committees he was on. Therefore, I'd be working on different legislation. I'd be working with different members of Congress. And I think that's a good thing for the district. So I would be ideologically similar, but working in different committees. Thanks.
Moving on to the topic of public lands, and Kathleen, you're going to be starting this question. In most of the counties within CD2, the federal government has control over a majority of the acreage within the county. As a member of Congress, what approach will you take to the myriad of issues affecting public lands policy? Please clearly provide why our rural communities should trust you on this topic.
Well, we do know that the federal government owns, what, 61, is it 1% of the state of Utah through those federal lands. And through recent actions of the past several administrations, we see national monuments declared and undeclared and shrinking and growing, and that's an extremely frustrating problem that we have here in Utah. I love our national lands. I know that Zion National Park has had some issues that they're struggling with growth, especially, the past couple of years during COVID. And I know the staffing and the personnel isn't not keeping up with the demands of tourism. It's now the third most visited national park in America, behind the Smoky Mountains and the Grand Canyon. We surpassed 5 million visitors in 2021. And in addition to the problems that we have in the Virgin River, we now have these visitors. Oops.
Thank you, Kathleen.
I've worked on a lot of issues. Out of everybody here on the stage, I have more experience in Congress than all of them. I worked in both the House and Senate. I'm the only candidate who can do that. Now, on public lands, the expert here is Celeste. I have to say that. She knows more than probably anybody else in this room about public lands. And I would defer to her on those things, but at the same time, I hope to work with her in the future if ever I engage on those issues. When it comes to public lands, though, I believe that it's states' rights. We do much better job at working out of our public lands than anybody else. I don't want a New Yorker or somebody from California telling us what to do with our lands when they have no investment in it and they don't care about it. It's our lands and we need to be responsible for it. I talked to a delegate today. He wants to preserve recreation. Let's hold it in the hands of our local officials and they make the decisions, not people from out of state.
This issue hits close to home to us. 10 miles from here, Washington City just broke ground on a new city park. It was land that was private, donated to the city, but it touched BLM land. It's not on BLM land, it touched BLM land. And the hoops that we had to jump through and the hurdles we had to jump over just to break ground on that park because it touches BLM delayed the groundbreaking by months. This is unacceptable. This is our land. We have to fight back. When it comes to grazing, a new rule that just came out from the Biden administration would allow extremist environmentalists to buy up grazing rights with the sole purpose of crowding out the ranchers and the farmers who actually need to graze their cattle. This is not right. We have to have control of our public lands, and we've been saying it for years. Like I said, Congress has the power of the purse. When these agencies get out of touch, like the BLM, we have to withhold their funding. We have to fight for our lands. I'm willing to do that. I'm familiar with the issues, and I'll go to work.
We need people both in DC and the state who understand how important this issue is. When I was in the legislature and chairing the Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee, we supported and began the Office of Outdoor Recreation. What that meant was small grants going across the state, mostly rural, to help communities and entities who were looking for ways to advance opportunities for people to recreate and increase their quality of life. This meant that Utah could continue to have over $6.1 billion in economic prosperity coming in from recreation. It meant that the over 80,000 employees who are in the tourism industry had a place to work and thrive and grow their families. These are things that are personal across our state and especially in these southern 10 counties here in Utah. We need someone who can work both with federal and our state delegations so we can work on these issues. And never before is there an issue where it's so clear local is better, state and local and federal working together is best.
I've been training my whole life to answer this question, and you're only giving me 1 minute. So I'm going to see how many ideas I can get out in a minute. we're a public land state, and I know that's a great thing in a lot of ways. I know people like to hunt on public land and recreate on public land, and it's open and we have access, and there are states that don't have anything like that. It also means the federal government is really involved in day-to-day decisions of our local governments and our local people. We have problems with permitting for transmission lines for power. We have problems with maintaining roads. We have problems with wild horses. We have problems with grazing and access, and these are the things that you know you can trust me on because I've been working with you on these issues for years. I've been in the trenches, I've been in the dirt, I've been on the dirt roads with you. And it is imperative that we have someone in this seat who can work with these agencies and keep the agencies in check because they have such a big impact on our day-to-day lives. They shouldn't, but they do, and you need somebody there who knows how to work with them. I'm that person. Thank you.
Well, one thing that people haven't, much of these candidates haven't said is that you guys have a voice. It's plain and simple. You guys have a voice to say whether or not those lands either grow or shrink. You guys have the voice to say how we use those lands. The federal government should have no say in what we do with Utah. Utah is Utah's land. Forever, the federal government has cut us down. It started with Deseret, and they cut us down to our state now. They need to have no hand in it. We need to cut them off, and I will stand to make sure that they don't get any more land. I'm willing to work with them, but I want to put you guys in the driver's seats for your public lands. I use public lands, and I hate that I can't recreate the way I want to, and I want to make sure you guys have recreation for generations to come.
Thank you, candidates. I can't stress enough from the delegates in southern Utah especially how important that question was, so I appreciate all of your answers. Going on to the next question, I'm going to be a little selfish here, and Scott, you get to be the first one to answer this one. As the chairman of the Utah Republican Party, it is now my turn to ask you this question, and really I want a good answer, okay? Each of you are asking for our support as Republicans. What I want to know is, please be specific regarding the relationship you plan to have with the Republican Party, and what will you do to support the Utah Republican Party?
Utah Republican Party. This is something I've been working with since I was a little boy. When my mother, sitting right there, she had me come out and campaign for various candidates throughout the state. When she was secretary of the county party up in Salt Lake, that's where I first got my taste of politics. I have her to blame for me being here right now. So, what will I do for the party? There are two parties in this system. You can either be a Republican or not, as far as I'm concerned. So I am in it to win it. And I will do whatever it takes to make our party the strongest and make sure that we stay red in Utah. Thank you.
I've spent over a decade making sure that we elect conservative Republicans in the state of Utah. When the establishment was lined up against Senator Mike Lee during his re-election in 2016, he trusted me to run his re-election campaign, and he increased his vote count over his prior election. People often ask me, when have you ever stood up to the establishment? When I ran for vice chairman of the Utah Republican Party, I ran against the governor's hand-picked candidate, and I beat him soundly at convention. I am a supporter of the caucus system, always have been, always will be. I am running convention only because I trust you, the delegates. I've served for an entire term and was reelected as vice chairman of the Utah Republican Party, volunteering my time for this party that I love because I align with the principles that we espouse as Republicans. We are free market, we are individual liberty. We believe in the strength of families. We believe in strong borders and a strong economy and low taxes. Those are the things I stand for as a Republican and the service I've given to this state.
I believe it's incredibly important that we find and support a Republican who can win in the White House in 2024. This should be our #1 goal here as Utahns, as Americans. Let's support a candidate who can win, we need to have a Republican in the White House. So a lot of states, this is a big challenge. We will not have that challenge here in Utah because we are a red state. We will elect a Republican president from the state of Utah. However, we need to support our fellow Republicans. We need to support the delegate caucus convention, which I have always done that process. I've been, like I say, I've been a delegate myself many, many times, and as a candidate 5 times. I have built relationships with my delegates through the time, and some of you out here I recognize and have deep appreciation for the relationship and counseling and support that you've given me and understanding on issues. It's about building relationships, and it's about helping Republicans win the White House.
Thank you, Becky.
So the question is, if I'm elected, what will I do to support the Republican Party? First of all, thank you for what you do in the Republican Party. I know that things like this don't happen without a lot of work. I was the vice chair of the Washington County Republican Party, and I know how much work it takes to put together the delegate lists. I've been a delegate, and I know how much work it takes to vet the candidates. If I win, I will be participating in the caucus convention system, and I'll also be showing up and supporting the events and the efforts of the party. I know that the party does a lot to support our federal delegation and Republican elected officials, and I think Republican elected officials owe it to the party to also show up, show support, report back to the people who put us there. Thank you.
Well, I would support the Republican Party through and through. I would find candidates to replace not only myself, if elected, but candidates across the state to entrust with the various voters. I would endorse non-establishment, non-rhinos, true conservatives, true constitutionalists. We need those. We need people who live, breathe, and will die for this Constitution. And I will make sure that a true constitutionalist Republican will serve in any of our districts. And much like Becky, I agree that we need somebody in the White House. We need strong Republican values and conservative values and constitutionalist values in the White House so we can restore our republic to what it once was.
Chairman, as you're aware, my husband is a former chairman of the Utah Republican Party from 2017 to 2019. And I know firsthand the challenges that you face leading the party. And I also know how difficult it's been as far as fundraising and doing things for the party. And members of Congress are very much motivated by an organization called the National Republican Congressional Committee to fundraise for them once they're in office. In fact, that's how members of Congress are rewarded certain committee assignments. How much money can you raise for us? And I think that is exactly why government is so messed up today. If I'm elected, I'm going to commit to helping fundraise for the party because I think those dollars should stay here, and I think the stronger the Utah Republican Party is, the stronger our state is, and we need to keep the state red. So I pledge my support to you to do that.
Thank you, candidates. I do need to point out we have a couple of cameras, so you are now all on the record with that commitment. So I look forward to holding you accountable for that. We have enough time. I'm going to go into a little bit of a round robin. So very short answers. These are pretty easy. You'll all be able to answer the same questions. So we just have a couple of these. Yes or no, did the federal government overstep its authority in response to the COVID pandemic? By a show of hands. If you agree with that statement, did the federal government overstep its authority in response to the COVID pandemic? Okay, next question. Has the United States done enough to support Ukraine, or has it done too much? If you believe it's done enough to support Ukraine, please raise your hand. If you believe that it has done too much to support Ukraine, please raise your hand. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you each 10 seconds to fill in any gaps that you feel that you need to on these couple of questions. 2 more. Is ESG an issue which is or which should be prioritized, or is it overblown? If you think it needs to be prioritized, please put your hand up. If you think that the ESG issue is overblown, okay. Actually, two more, sorry. Is election integrity an issue of concern for you, yes or no? If yes, please raise your hand. Okay. Do you believe additional gun control is needed to address gun violence in the United States? I'll read that one again. Do you believe additional gun control is needed to address gun violence in the United States? If you agree with that statement, please raise your hand. Okay. I will afford any of you who wants this 10 seconds to elaborate on any of these quick answers. Jordan?
On Ukraine, I think that we need to stop writing blank checks. I am okay providing military assistance to help them defend their sovereignty. But when we don't track the money being spent...
Perfect. Thank you, Jordan. Celeste.
I was also planning on addressing Ukraine. I think it's important that the world stepped up and supported Ukraine when Russia invaded, but we need a plan. We need to know what success looks like. We need to know when it's time to stop helping, and we need an accounting for every dollar we spent.
Becky, did you...
Yeah, I just want to say these are complex issues. They do a disservice to you as delegates to have a yes, no on these answers, and I think that your time is better spent actually having conversations with each candidate. This is a real...
Time. Scott, did you have anything?
Yeah, so on Ukraine, I absolutely love the Ukrainian people. I have a bunch of them in my ward. I know what they're going through. I've seen many things that they've seen. But we need to quit spending your tax dollars, and we don't need to put lives on the line. I know what it's like.
Thanks, Scott. Hold your applause, please, for the end. Scott, did you have something? And then Kathleen.
Of course. I got 10 seconds. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to push back on any federal regulation that comes out that stops people from guns. Bump stocks, pistol braces, those are all things that you should have. If not, Congress should be doing that, not an agency.
Kathleen.
Now that it appears that Ukraine were the ones who blew the Nord Stream pipeline, they have proven that they will go rogue, and that is something that we need to take into consideration very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Scott, did I already give you time? Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to talk about the gun control.
No, you can include it in your closing statement.
Gotcha.
So with this, we're going to move to the closing statement portion. We'll start at the opposite end. So beginning with Kathleen and then coming down to you, Scott. 1 minute.
Thank you so much again for hosting this, everyone, and for coming. This is the greatest part about running for office, is seeing your engagement. If I'm elected, I promise to be present, engaged, and work as hard for you as is humanly possible. That is my pledge. I may not know every term or every acronym or every policy point that there is to know in government today, but I can assure you no one on this stage does, nor do the 535 sitting members of the 2 chambers of Congress. And I will work my hardest for you. I know right from wrong. I know what needs to change. I'm worried about our families. I'm worried about our children in school. And I will push back. You have my pledge on that. Thank you very much for hosting tonight and for your patience with all of us. Thank you.
Well, if you guys, as a wonderful delegation, decide to endorse me, I would absolutely love it. My promise to you is no new gun legislation will pass through me. I will do everything I can to turn it back. No gun legislation whatsoever should be there. It's vague for a reason. Unlike most of the people up here, I know the true cost of freedom. I've said it. I won't commit more people to die on foreign wars. I won't commit your tax dollars to foreign wars. I will focus on our communities, empowering the law enforcement, reforming our immigration system, securing our borders, and most importantly, putting you, the people, back into the driver's seat. That is my promise to you.
It's an honor to be here on this stage. I feel really blessed to be in a state with a convention system where somebody like me who doesn't have a lot of wealth can be in a contest like this. I can be running for Congress on $30,000. I'm really grateful for that. I would love your support in Delta on Saturday at the state convention. And here's why I think that I'm the best person for you to support. Nobody up here has more experience representing the 2nd Congressional District than I do. Nobody here cares more about the 2nd Congressional District than I do. I live in Cedar City. I love this area. I know how to go to war with the federal government. I know how to work with agencies. I know how to win them over when they're doing something right. I know how to push them back when they're doing something wrong. I have experience in every county in this district, and I want to continue the legacy of Congressman Stewart and keep the important work going that you have brought to me over the last few years. Thank you.
There are a couple of things that are sorely missing right now in Congress. One, an ability to tolerate and welcome vigorous debate. The Republican Party is based on ideas and a willingness to listen and learn and debate in a vigorous way the future and the direction of our country. We as Republicans encourage and support those conversations. What we're seeing right now in Congress is not a respect of the Republican values that we all adhere to. Limited government, fiscal responsibility, local control is the best. These are things that I did for 10 years. This is not theoretical for me when I'm talking about how you can impact issues that are in the weeds of people's lives. I did that over and over on public lands, on transportation, on growth, housing, water, resource stewardship. These are things that I worked on over and over. I'll do it again. I built relationships with my colleagues from this part of the state. I live in the district. I love this state. Thank you.
I've always been a champion of conservative policy and conservative principles. I have a track record that shows that. I am a consistent conservative. We need to send someone to Washington, D.C. who understands the proper role of government and the Article 1 designations that are given to Congress and the authority that they hold that they are not currently practicing or using. We have to get back to the basics. We have to get our spending under control. We cannot afford to spend more on our interests than we spend on our military. And I hope you'll join John Frugal Dougal in endorsing me. He said that I am the one candidate that he trusts to have fiscal restraint in Washington, D.C. We have to end omnibus spending. We have to get back to regular order. Congress must exercise the power of the purse. I am willing to do that. My experience championing conservative policy federally, across the states, and here in Utah, I'm connected to the district. I know these communities from north to south. I can be your representative, and I ask for your vote on Saturday.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I'm sure all of you do too, and so do all of these candidates. But the question you need to ask is who has the best chance to hit the ground running when they go back to DC? I have the most experience of all of these candidates combined in DC. I worked in the House and the Senate, the only candidate who could do that. And not only that, I'm an expert in multiple issues, not just one. And that's why I am your best candidate, and I want you to consider me. All of you delegates, please, I have been calling you as much as I can, and so many of you are not answering. Please give me a chance. I will not stop, because I want to hear your voices, and I will make sure that they are heard in DC. Let's do this for you, for Utah.
Thank you. Very much appreciate all of you as candidates. I have to say, not just those of you on stage, but even those in the other room. Some I know better than others, but without an exception, you are all good people. And it's been a pleasure to get to know all of you better. Delegates, thank you for being here. Keep in mind, we now have the second portion that will be coming shortly. And because there's only 5 candidates in that, that means we're beyond the halfway point. But before we let these folks off the stage, let's give them a round of applause.
All right. Let's have our first set of candidates come down here, and Barry will take you back to the sequestered room. And the other candidates, if you will come forward and take your seats. You can stand and stretch, but we're not really taking a break, so just stay. We're going to start right back up. Oh, thank you, Scott.
I was like, what is this?
Thank you. Barry? Here we go. All right, take your seats. We are ready to go for our second session. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Yep, we will. Okay. All right. We have seen that a few people have maybe stepped out to use the restroom, so we're going to timers. Will you set the timer for 3 minutes? And we're going to start in 3 minutes. And as they set the timer, can we give a big hand to Dave and Judy? They keep this place running smooth. I told Rob when we were talking about how the timing works in Washington County, I'm like, we just hold our card up and people know that when the red card's up, you're done. And if not, we'll start clapping over them. So we know how to do it here. We appreciate you. All right, we're going to just let me know, Judy, when that goes off and we'll get going again. Thank you. We just had a really good question about a couple of the candidates that aren't here. Ty Jensen was not able to get out of work to be able to participate in the debates, so we excuse him. And okay, and I'll let Rev answer the other one.
So the other gentleman, if you look on the filing, there were 13 Republican candidates who filed. In order to be eligible for the debates, you had to be a convention path candidate, either solely convention or a dual track. I didn't think it made sense to waste your time as delegates to have somebody if they weren't asking for your vote. Luckily, every single one of these candidates wanted your attention and support. However, there was one of our candidates who never responded to any correspondence, any email, any phone calls. The party has an obligation and a requirement that a week prior to the convention that they have to file a form with us. This person did not submit that, so they are disqualified. And that's the individual named Remy. So Remy will not be eligible on Saturday through the Republican convention process. If that individual still wants to pursue signatures, they can do that accordingly.
Great. Okay, while we wait for the time to go up. Oh,
Yeah, to be clear on that, sorry. Ty, though, will be there at convention. He is a candidate, so please look at his candidacy as well and review what he's trying to engage with you on. It's just he was unavailable to participate in the debates.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, we've got just a few seconds left. Those of you out in the halls, please come in. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew if there were any questions about Saturday and what you need to be doing or need to know about that. Are there any questions? Does everybody know where you need to be and when you need to be there? Okay, one of the things I really want to stress to you is that it is going to be multiple rounds of voting, and plan on being there a few hours. Do not leave. Kristen Norton was saying, please make sure people know you don't leave after the first round. We may have a couple drop off after the first round, but we could go several rounds before we pick a winner. Do not leave. It is so important, especially we know how we feel about it down here in Washington County. We've got a lot of votes, and we do not want to miss any of those votes. Zach, you had a question.
Yeah, where specifically at Delta High School, where will the convention be held? I promise I speak English.
So Delta High School, right next to the high school, is an arena called, I believe, the Palladium. And so the parking is still at the high school. It's at Delta High School. Put it into your GPS. It will take you right there, but it's at the arena right next door. Credentialing for any candidate, or excuse me, any delegate begins at 1 p.m., and then we will begin the convention portion at 3 p.m. So between 1 and 3, you can go and engage with all of these candidates and the others who we just had on the stage, as there will be the booth and convention space as well. So please do what you need to do to be there no later than 3 p.m. in order to get credentialed and participate in the balloting.
Okay, Rob, sorry, I'm going to correct you. No, don't show up at 3 p.m. to get credentialed.
No later than
no,
we will allow it.
no later than in our time. In Dixie time, we're there an hour early. So let's make sure that we're there, that we are credentialed, and we are able to vote, and that we don't delay the meeting starting, because it's going to be a long meeting, and we need to drive home afterwards. So let's make sure. And can we give Rob a big hand, because if it was not for him, we would be in Salt Lake on Saturday. So I'm so grateful. When Rob ran for chair, he and I had some conversations, and one of my biggest conversations with him was, I'm tired of the South being neglected. And he promised me that he would take care of us. This is his first action to do that, and I really appreciate that he moved that closer to us. So now everybody gets to travel and not just us. And, 2.5 hours is way better than 4. All right, we are ready for our second half of our debate. Wow, no women. Oh my goodness. I guess they were all in the first one. All right, well, we got all handsome guys, so that's good. All right, we are excited. We're going to turn it over to Rob, and here we go.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you, delegates, again for being here. Thank you, candidates, most importantly. And we're going to get right into it, starting with opening statements. I want to make sure all 5 of you see our wonderful time keepers right there. So they have both the color-coded system and the iPad with the numerics, so you have no excuse. So with that, we're going to start with you, Greg. Yeah, actually, let's do a quick mic check. Everybody make sure that your microphone is turned on.
Tasting.
Okay, Bruce,
1,
you're
2,
good?
3, tasting.
Can you hear me?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Quinn and Bill.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, my name is Greg Hughes. I come before you as having been a public servant in the State House. I've served as a majority whip for 2 terms. 2 terms as our House Speaker. It's a citizen legislature. You have to have a day job when you serve in Utah State Legislature. I had a beautiful time, a great experience working within the legislative branch. I ran for governor, did not win. However, had an incredible experience running. Only candidate that picked someone off the Wasatch Front to be my running mate. I picked your Washington County Commissioner, Victor Iverson, because the issues that you face are as critical in a state race like that. Look, we didn't win, but we won 10 counties. 7 of those are in the 2nd Congressional District. I'm running because I don't spot anything about the U.S. Congress, its legislative branch, that looks like it's sustainable. I've learned some lessons along the way. We can't let things go the way they are. If you send me there, we're going to start applying some of these principles we have here and the power of the legislative branch that we need to keep this country going and have the America that we all have lived in so far. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Bruce Huff. I am really pleased to be here. Thank you, Rob. I've been a chairman of this state, and it is a tough job. I told him that if everybody hates you, you're doing your job. It kind of works that way. I'm running for Congress really for one reason. That's wrong. Not just one, a bunch, but one main reason. 22 grandkids and a $32 trillion debt. It's unsustainable. You're going to hear unsustainable a lot because it just is. I'm a business guy. I've spent 40 years basically creating jobs in this state, thousands of jobs, investing in this state, including in this county with providers of services and products for our business. And it's what we need right now. We need leadership in the Congress that will actually get things done. Not talk about it, but do it. Thanks very much.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm Bill Hoster, and I'm running for U.S. Congress. I am really, really sick of the rhinos that we've got back in D.C. I think a lot of you have seen that slogan coming from me. I think we have to have some true leadership back in D.C., and we have to have people with experience in the real world. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a first responder, a father, currently serving as a volunteer mayor in the town of Leeds. I know what we have ahead of us right now, and it's not an easy road. What it takes is someone with backbone who's going to stand up and do the right thing, which I think a lot of you have had the opportunity to see me do here. I think it's really important that we have some representation down here this time as we go for Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bill Hoster, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Quinn Denning. I want to start off and thank each one of you for being here. This is such an important aspect of keeping our republic a republic. The caucus and convention system is one of those things that makes us a representative government. That is very, very important. I want to thank all of the service that Chris Stewart has done for us. You know, my heart goes out to him and his family, and we're praying for him. As we come to this election, one of the most critical things, and the reason I'm running, is we need somebody that knows the Constitution, is willing to stand up and fight for the constitutional principles that made us a great nation. We have got to have a representative that will do that. It is vitally important that we do that. I ask for your vote. My name is Quinn Denning. Win with Quinn.
Hey there, I'm Henry Eyring. It's an enormous privilege to be here with you and to be able to speak my truth as a father and as a husband. I'm a Papa grizzly bear, and I'm married to a mama grizzly bear. And the government is getting between the grizzly bear and the cubs. And we are here to say we've had enough. And we're going to go straight to those Department of Education bureaucrats, straight to the FBI, straight to these people in government who think that DC gets to rule our lives in our communities, in our schools. And we are going to tell them to get out. Congress is the place to do it because we hold the power of the purse. And I know from my career in business, if you want to choke something off, you cut the funding and it dies real quick. And so that's what I'm here to do. I don't have a long time to do it. I need to get it done now. And I'm asking for your vote, for your support. Everybody tells us kids grow up quick. They grow up before your eyes. We need to get this solved quick because time's burning. So I ask for your vote and your support. And please help me to do that as your representative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. We will be going right into questions, and we'll be starting with you, Bruce. If elected to Congress, your constituents will expect your tireless service on their behalf. Please provide specific decisions, experiences, and traits you will rely on to be effective. How are you prepared for the policy work and relationships needed to be successful?
Thanks, Rob. I have kind of an interesting background. I mentioned, 40 years of business, starting businesses, growing businesses, providing jobs, signing both sides of a paycheck. It's a big deal. I've also been very involved in the political side from the perspective of volunteer service, where I've served this party both in the state and on a national level, which means that I understand the process. I think one of the things that I bring most of all is this idea of how to work with people to get things done. We don't have to agree with people, but we do need to treat them with respect. We need to listen. We need to try to understand them. And even though we don't agree with them, we can find common interests. There's lots of things that we can do on an incremental basis to slow the ship of government down. We're never going to get that balanced budget amendment until we get 60 senators, but we can incrementally make it go slower. Thanks.
Bill.
Prior to moving down here, I was actually a CEO of a turnaround company, and I had to work with a lot of people to turn around a company that was actually failing miserably. We were incredibly successful with that, but it was because of the team that I had. When I came down here, I thought I was going to retire, land into this mayor role. And as a mayor, I thought, oh, maybe it's 10 hours a week. It ended up being 40 plus hours a week of volunteer work. Now, I don't do anything halfway, but I can tell you that involved with this has been a matter of making really hard executive decisions, just like I did as a CEO. I've had to make decisions and be the final straw on every one of those decisions and take full accountability for them. I think that's what we need back in DC, is someone who is willing to step up and do the right thing, no matter what, and make sure that the job gets done right. Thank you. I'm Bill Hoster.
Growing up, I've always played sports. Being a teammate is very critical. In fact, playing basketball, which is my sport, if you're not a good teammate, you don't win. If you're a ball hog, then you create all kinds of problems for the rest of your teammates. It's important to be a teammate, number one. I plan to create teams back there. As I said before, studying the Constitution has given me a different perspective. I am not going back there tainted by other public service. I come from the business background. Everything that I've done, I have to make decisions. I have to make decisions quick. I have to make the right decisions. So I look at things. I analyze things. I ask people that know more than I do. I'm not somebody that thinks I know everything. I expect each of you to help me do my job better. Thank you.
There's a powerful lesson that I learned when I was growing up, which is that the Utah way, growing up as the son of high school sweethearts in Bountiful, as a competitor down here at the Summer Olympic Games every year, I learned that hard work can get better results, and that when you change your technique as a swimmer, you can even put in less effort and go faster. And I believe the government has completely passed up opportunities and written off the possibility that they could be any better than they currently are, and they're completely satisfied. Because I know that you can do this, that you can cut waste and get better results, you can cut spending and get better health, you can cut spending and get better education, better economic growth, better family, better protection of families' rights and parents' rights. That's the mindset that I want to bring to Congress and that I have brought in business throughout the state of Utah, and that I'm ready to take to Washington, D.C. on your behalf.
Our legislative branch is built for strength. There's power in numbers. I don't know this academically. I've lived this. What I would do, if you're tired of the executive orders from an executive branch, that's because your legislative branch has given that space up. It doesn't pass laws. If you're tired of the heavy-handedness of a federal government, of the FBI, of the EPA, of the IRS, it's because the power of the purse is not being exercised by your legislative branch. I bring that experience. I don't read about it. I haven't seen it. I'm telling you, I'm afraid a lot of people in Congress have never tasted or seen the power of a legislative branch, strength in numbers, that can get these things done. What I would do, it's a game or an effort of addition. You bring people together, you start passing budgets, imagine that. you start holding hearings and passing bills instead of executive orders. You can hold people accountable with the power of the purse, and you can hold these agencies, these rogue agencies, accountable with laws that you pass. That's what I will bring in my efforts as your member of Congress.
Bill, we're going to start with you on this question. While the Constitution does not require a member of Congress to live within the district they represent, please answer whether your primary residence is in CD2 and how this would affect your ability to represent the needs of the district.
Well, the answer to that question is I do live in CD2. I actually live in that town, Leeds, that I'm the mayor of. It's in CD2. They required that. I don't know why. I think it's so they could call me when the dog was barking and I could be right there. I think it's really important. I use this metaphor for those of you who actually heard the debate up north, and I'll use it again. Trying to describe chocolate to someone who's never tasted chocolate is what it's like to live in the different areas within this district. It is entirely different here than it is up north. It's not wrong. It's actually just different. Having that empathy, having lived there, I think that's important when you're trying to understand, to talk to those people, and to have the dialogue of understanding what's important to you. How do we get what's important to you resolved? I think it's really important also that someone is within this district that's going to represent you. Thank you.
I also live in this district. I live down here in Ivans. It's a beautiful place. And we do have some unique things that we need to be concerned about down here. You know, our district extends up to Bountiful. I grew up part of my life in Bountiful, so I have friends up there still. I know some of the issues that they have. As we go throughout our state and we see all these different issues, it's very important that we have somebody that's from our district. Why do we have a district if we don't have a representative from our district? It's so important that we do have representation from our district, that we can go talk to, that we know where they live. Anybody that doesn't know where I live, it's not hard to find in Ivans. It's pretty small. You can drive around, and I'm sure if you've driven around Ivans, you've probably driven by my house. So it's important that we have that representation so that we know that we're being represented properly. Thank you.
My primary residence is in CD2. We've lived in Centerville with my young family. This past year, we moved to Salt Lake, also in CD2. I grew up in North Salt Lake, back when Bountiful Boulevard still had potholes, and we would drive over on the school bus, and we would really get a fun ride to school when we'd hit those and no seatbelts. And so I just know this. I know this district through and through. And beyond that, I know what it's like to be a cattle rancher and to have government tyranny invade our ability to provide secure sources of food to Americans. And so I'm on the phone, I have got BLM on speed dial, and I give them an earful. And I know the laws well enough that if I need to, I can put them in a half Nelson. And so you need somebody who understands both the rural parts of the state and also, the northern, the Wasatch Front. I don't think I think we have the same values at heart. We got family values, and we want to have control of our lives in our lands.
So I don't live in the district, but this is my case I'm going to make to you. The reason you think, and we all believe it's important to have someone that lives in the district, is what you don't want is someone that's disconnected from you, your community, or the issues that you face. For your consideration, this is my case. I have worked as a state lawmaker, especially when I was Speaker of the House, on issues of lands and of water. You go up north into Tooele County, which is in a district, so the rural districts that we've worked on those issues. You go up to Tooele, there's a lot of issues with transportation. Most of that county leaves the county before to go to work and comes back in. You look at the growth issues of Salt Lake County, you look at Davis County, they have their very different issues. 13 counties in this district, I've worked on the issues to make sure that this district, 2nd District, they don't have a member of Congress that's disconnected from their issues. Now look, there's just 2 people in Utah, 2 types, those that live in southern Utah and those that want to live in southern Utah. So I'm telling you, you're not looking at someone where that's a hard thing to do. But I'm telling you, I'm connected to it. Only gubernatorial candidate that picked a running mate from southern Utah because I'm connected to this community and the 2nd District. Thank you,
Craig.
I don't live in the 2nd District. I've lived in the same place for almost 30 years, and I've lived in 3 congressional districts during that time without moving. Here's the reality. The Constitution says we need to be a citizen of the state, and I think I qualify on the age side also. The other thing is, I look at it this way. If I'm your congressman, over 2/3 of the time, my head is hitting the pillow in Washington, D.C. When I'm not in Washington, D.C., guess where I'm going to be? I'm going to be right here dealing with mayors and county commissioners and with businesses and with educators about what's going on here, ranchers and farmers. I grew up working on my grandfather's farm. I've lived in 2 rural counties in this state. This is not a stretch. The people in Davis County, in Salt Lake County, Washington County, Juab, Kane, etc., we're together in one state. We have the same problems, water and land.
To the next question, Quinn, you're going to be starting this one off. Please provide specific examples of where you feel Congress and the federal government have overstepped their authority, and what will you do to counter that?
Well, the first one I think we've just seen. They set a new debt limit. They raised the debt ceiling. That's like taking your children and giving them a credit card, and when they max it out, you say, oh, don't worry, honey. We'll just increase the limit. What a terrible idea. They have overstepped their bounds to do that. We need to curtail that kind of activity. I'm somebody that I believe in balanced budgets. Not just a budget, but a balanced budget. Some of the other things that are very important, we have these agencies that are running rogue, that have no business doing what they're doing. Congress has the power to correct that. Congress has 18 powers. We should be exercising those powers. Instead, Congress exercises other powers as well. It's important to get somebody back there that understands the Constitution, that we can put a stop to that. Thanks.
Well, I think sometimes 2 problems really add fuel to the same fire. So one problem is that we're spending way too much, and another problem is that government's doing a bunch of things that it shouldn't be doing. And so you can kill those 2 birds with 1 stone. And that's why you need somebody in Congress who understands what's been spent and how it's impacting families. So I understand being on the other side of a teacher whose hands are tied, who wants to teach a curriculum that aligns with our values and that aligns with their values, and can't do it because they have to check boxes, who can't even check if our kids are meeting the standards that we would have for them because there's some loony bin standards that have been passed down by some bureaucrat in Washington. So you got to have somebody who's lived that experience. Department of Education, in terms of EPA, we've got wolves that have been introduced on our land. They eat about 100 calves a year, and a lot of money goes into protecting those wolves and running us out of business. So there's so many areas. I would cut back on lots of the funding for those bureaucratic agencies.
The spending that's happening in this country with the absence of a Congress that's passing budgets, it's destroying this middle class in real time. Our dollars mean less, and everything around us is getting more expensive. That's something that is not sustainable and has to stop. The 2-tier justice system we're living through right now, and the heavy-handedness and weaponization of federal governments and agencies, it can't go on anymore. And I'm really tired, unique to this state, and the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, what they are doing to our counties. 90% federal land in Kane County. I mean, this is something that is an attack every single day on Utahns. You can't grow. You can't have your community. You can't have young people growing up in their communities. They have to go somewhere else to find a job because of the way the federal government is strangling the people of Utah, the everyday people of this country, and of America. Those are the 3 areas that I'm concerned about: the spending, the overreach of government, and the lands and how they're attacking our lands in real time.
Rob, would you repeat that question?
Yeah, no problem.
I want to make sure I answer it.
Please provide specific examples of where you feel Congress and the federal government have overstepped their authority, and what will you do to counter that?
And we only have 1 minute, right? Okay. Well, look, just recently, right? BLM. Conservancy leases, give me a break. Ranchers and cattlemen are the best stewards of those lands for grazing. It's regenerative. They want to lock it up. We'll end up with the same problem we have with our national forests, which means that Mother Nature has to do its job because we don't do our job the way we should. We have a constant problem with federal agencies who have decided to become legislators, unelected legislators. To me, this is one of the key principal problems we have to solve. It's really clear. Congress has to be accountable. When you're the CEO or president of a company, you are accountable to everybody. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, guess what? You're fired. We need to get our Congress to be accountable for what they were elected to do, which is to legislate and not let the regulators do it.
So there's this process that Congress goes through in making laws. That's their job, right? But they delegate a lot of those laws down to unelected bureaucrats, and I call them the alphabet mafia. We're talking the IRS, the DOJ, the CDC. Who remembers all the laws that they have passed and gotten through that compromise our constitutional rights? There's this thing called the Federal Registry that they're able to actually put a new law that they've created in this bureaucracy that once it's been out for 30, 60 days, it becomes law. Congress is supposed to do that. So Congress has delegated a lot of things that they should be taking care of, and they can do a lot of those things through the purse. $100 billion a year is what we spend on those bureaucracies. My friends, that has got to stop. It's not going to be an easy job, but it's got to be from somebody who's going to stand up and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We're now to that stage like we did on Tuesday where there is a specific question to each of you. So Henry, you're going to be starting with this one. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you've decided to homeschool your kids. That's right, yeah. So how does this decision prepare you to represent the families and the students across CD2?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brooke and I, unwittingly, it was Plan Z to homeschool. We aren't confident in our ability to educate anybody. Don't send your kids to our homeschool. We're learning it as we go. But we feel like our back is up against the wall as an American family. We try to say, we have a goal for a certain percentage of a home payment that we want to be the down payment. Every year we save more money, and we have a lower percentage of the price of a house saved. We're shoveling when it's snowing. We're shoveling when it's snowing in terms of trying to raise our kids and teach them the things that they need to learn, because the school, we've just given up on the ability of bureaucrats in Washington, or the ability of schools who are just facing too much pressure from bureaucrats in Washington. Our hearts go out to the teachers who have to deal with that, but we have to step in. And so I think that the way that this prepares me is putting my feet to the fire. The fire is in my bones. If you're not feeling that pain directly, it's just as hard to be that motivated. So for mostly, it just gives me this fierce motivation. Thank you.
Greg, during your time in the state legislature, you supported the passage of SB 54. What would you do differently, if anything, and what should delegates in the convention system know about your actions then?
Appreciate that question. We had an initiative coming to the ballot that was going to say we're going to do away with caucus convention cycles completely and go to a straight primary, and that election was coming in November. This is the false premise that was being pushed. Would you like 4,000 people to pick your governor or senator, or would you like to have a vote? That is not true. That is not an accurate representation of a caucus convention cycle, but just as state legislatures don't elect the U.S. senators anymore, and that's the direct election, there were many of us that were afraid that with the money that was being spent, we would see that pass. We negotiated the SB 54. Since the day that was negotiated, they have gone back. Count My Vote has reneged on every single commitment they've made. I have tried since that time to reverse it. I've never used it. I've never worked for anyone that collected signatures. I've never believed in it. I will never hedge my bet, try to get around a delegate. I want your vote. I believe in the high information election cycle. And frankly, that bill was an attempt to preserve this caucus convention cycle because you don't want to lose it. You're the jurors. You should decide the candidates that face election in November and the primary.
Bruce, moving on to you. What is the most important legacy you could leave after serving in Congress if elected? How are you uniquely prepared to deliver for CD2?
Well, that's interesting, a legacy. I've actually thought about this. The legacy would be that I will have done everything I could to only vote for legislation that was constitutional, number one. Number two, I would make sure that anything that I voted for would be something that benefited the people of Utah, whether directly or indirectly, whether it be a national issue or a local issue. Number three, I would want to make sure that my family was proud of the work that I did something that was an example, that showed them that service is honorable and that doing your very best is something to be aspired to. And then finally, that we preserve the freedoms of religion in this country, that we are able to maintain our faith and practice it in the way that we want, and that parental rights are protected. Thank you.
Bill, moving on to you. You have used the term rhino when talking about some Republicans. Do you find the use of that term helpful? Does the use of that word prepare you to work with colleagues of different views? How so?
You sure this isn't from last debate? Okay, rhino, Republican in name only. We get a lot of this. We're talking 5 seats right now is our advantage in the Congress. And we've got people that we have seen and we've been critical of, and we know what they're doing. They put an R behind their name, and they get into those seats, and they vote a different way. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think it's right for those people to come in, represent you with qualities that you've voted them in for, and they vote a different way because they collapse to the pressure, or they've got an alliance with somebody, they've got some favors to pay back. They've been in this career politician world for so long that they go along to get along. I'm Bill Hoster, and I will stand up to this stuff. I've done it as a mayor, I've done it as a CEO, and I think it's really important that you stand up and say what you're going to do. And that's why I'm against the rhinos who are in D.C. right now.
Hold your applause till the end if you would. Thanks. Quinn, coming to you, you have talked about the Constitution often during this campaign. Please provide specific examples of where Congress has gone wrong and specifics on how you would be different.
In 1 minute.
In 1 minute.
Not all of them. You just can pick a couple.
Well, the first one, the Marriage Act that was passed. That was just a bad bill. It had some good aspects that made you feel good, but it didn't go far enough in protecting religious liberty. Now, the reason that was not a good bill is because Congress shouldn't be involved in making bills about religion, period. They shouldn't be making laws about marriage. That's a state issue. That is not a federal issue. There are so many things that the federal government is getting involved in that they shouldn't. We've got to stop that. There's several other bills that are like that. The Constitution was written in 4 pages. We have these bills that are 500 to 5,000 pages. That is wrong. We've got to stop that too. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for those specific questions. And now we're getting back to the same question for all of you. And Greg, you're up next. Moving on to the topic of public lands. In most of the counties within CD2, the federal government has control over a majority of the acreage within the county. As a member of Congress, what approach will you take to the myriad of issues affecting public land policy? Please clearly provide why our rural communities should trust you on the topic.
I'm going to ask you to trust me because I'm going to explain what I've done so far. When I was Speaker of the House and we saw Obama do exactly what Bill Clinton did in the last months of his presidency, treat this state like an ATM, encumbering more land and prohibiting people from accessing it. People that have lived around the land their whole lives saying you're a bad steward of the land, we have to keep you off. Clinton did it in the staircase. Obama did it with Bears Ears. I went down there as Speaker of the House, and I vowed in that December of 16 that we will go and we will go back to Washington, D.C., and we will fight to have this changed. I got off the dais. I went and ran that resolution myself. We went back to D.C. We got the Secretary of Interior to come here and look at these national monuments, and we did see them pulled back. As a member of Congress, I am telling you, members of Congress don't even comprehend what it means to have the federal encroachment and control over their communities, their counties. I'm going to help them understand that. I'm going to help explain that. And when we do that, we're going to take back that control that they shouldn't have in the first place.
You know, it's fascinating to look at a map, isn't it, and see what happened west of the Mississippi. Congress changed, and they changed their mind about who should and who ought to have stewardship over the lands. If you go back east, you don't see what you see out west. This federal encroachment, which began, 150 years ago, hasn't ended. We had sagebrush rebellions here. Some of you remember that. We have to literally trust people who work on this land. These are the people who are good stewards. They create regenerative resources in the land. Conserving it in the definition of people who don't live here, who do not work here, have no concept of it. First of all, we have to make sure that land policy is not created through executive order, period, end of story. It's Congress's job, and then we'll hold them accountable at the ballot box.
Folks, I'm Bill Hoster again. In case you forgot, I just want to make sure you know. Look, this is really relative to why we want someone living in our district. Any of y'all looked at the map and saw where all of the federal land is? Yeah, it's out here. I don't know why it's not back east, but they seem to know what we need and what we want. Unless you're in Nevada, seen how much they're able to get rid of federal land into the private sector in Nevada? I don't know how they're doing it so much better than us. Maybe leadership, maybe accomplishment, but we have to drive, we have to get these things done. We know how important this is. They don't know what we need. We know what we need. And I'm Bill Hoster, and I'll make it happen.
This is a constitutional issue. When Utah became a state, the federal government gave us all of the ground. And then they came and took it back. It's already been given to us once. There shouldn't be any reason why we don't have it. We've got to use Congress for what Congress is supposed to be for, to protect our constitutional liberties. When the federal government has usurped those liberties, it's Congress's job to put a stop to that. As a congressman, that's one of those liberties that I will fight for. It is vital that we fight for our land. The federal government, in the Constitution, they only have the right to own a small amount of land, not 65% of the land they own here in Utah. And if you're in Tooele County, it's 80%. Thank you.
Something I can bring to the table is an understanding of what it's like to live in agriculture, and then what it's like to be an accountant. I got a doctorate in accounting, so I understand the numbers, and I understand the law, and I understand the needs of the ranchers. And I want to bridge that gap so that we can take the heart that we feel, and we can go fight against the bureaucrats with the same medicine that they've been drugging us on. We're going to fight them back with our knowledge of the laws. We're going to push back on that, get access to our water, to our land. We're going to allow grazing to protect our food security. I remember talking with an expert, getting insight on what we could do to protect our water. And I said, there aren't really bureaucrats in Washington staying up all night scheming of ways to steal our water, are there? And she said, well, there are. So I'm dealing with those people. I know how to deal with them, and I want to fight for them on your behalf, on our behalf, on future generations' behalf. This land needs to be protected, and our water rights need to be protected.
Bruce, we're going to be starting with you on this next question. But while I read the question, you have a chance to grab some water. As the chairman of the Utah Republican Party, it is now my turn to ask an important question to me. Each of you are asking for the party and Republicans across Utah to support you. What are you going to do to support us? Please be specific regarding the relationship you plan on having with the Republican Party and how you will or will not support the Utah Republican Party.
Well, there's probably nobody on this stand or the previous stand that has the time and experience with the party that I do. I spent 2 terms as the chairman in this state. I've spent 3 terms as the national committee man. That means that I've actually won 3 statewide conventions in this state. That means that I've traveled to every state or every county numerous times. I've helped fundraise for this party. I've helped recruit for this party. I've done that for 40 years. And I can't imagine that anybody has the insight that I have to help the Republican Party, and I'll do everything I can to do more. Here's the reason. I'm a Republican because I believe in the fundamental principles that we believe in. Limited government, strong national defense, strong families, protecting the family, protecting religious liberty. That's why I'm a Republican. So supporting the party is easy.
There we go. So I think it's a really critical situation that we're looking at right now as being Republicans. We don't like to spend other people's money, right? But that's something that the younger generation doesn't really get until they kind of get on their own and start to do things. Well, here's the problem that I see is that the Democrat Party, they're really good at recruiting those guys. And they're really good at getting them loud and causing all of the momentum that's happening in the media, that's manipulating our press and manipulating the votes. I think I'm going to be a strong advocate for the Republican Party to move forward in opening the door, speaking to our youth, opening the door and having dialogue with those people. We need them with us. They want to be with us. We need to embrace them, and I want to help the Republican Party do that a lot more. Thank you.
You know, I love the platform of the Republican Party. It follows the Constitution. It gives reverence to the Constitution. We need to bring those principles into our children's lives in a very real way. As a congressman, I will plan to speak to the youth. Our youth, our rising generation, it's very, very important that they begin to learn the histories of our founding fathers. We have some awesome history. There are miracle stories that our founding fathers experienced. And if we could get the journals of our founding fathers, if you could get that in the hands of our children and they could read those, it could change their lives. There are so many wonderful things that are happening in our party. We need to just keep pushing it. Thank you.
The Republican Party is the reason that I grew up in a beautiful America. I grew up in a land of opportunity. I grew up in a place where we sang that we're proud to be Americans. That was the song of my childhood. And it's not the song of my children's childhood right now, but it needs to be. We need to be Republicans who are proud of our values and who expect them to appeal to young people. And I know why they appeal to young people. I teach classes, I teach college classes to young people who are forming their views on the world. I've taught at Utah State. I teach a 6-week class to any university that will let me go and share these values, because I want to get there where people are shaping their minds and shaping their opinions and explain to them why we're blessed by Republican Party principles. So sometimes I'll teach and nobody's ever even really heard that, before. I think we need to do a lot better outreach, a lot better at messaging, and just be proud of what we are, not ashamed of what we are. We're not the party of one demographic. We're the party of all demographics because we make life good.
You want to know why Utah's a red state? Because of its platform. And if you don't believe that, if you want to run for office, don't run as a Republican. Run as an independent and see how far you get. That platform matters. What you have in a Republican Party is you have a good grassroots. You have people that donate to make sure that the party has lights and they can turn them on. And you have your public servants. What I commit to you is this. You need to have the resources. As a member of Congress, as a leader, you can help raise funds for your party. You stay in touch with the grassroots. And you continue as public servants to spot the people for the bench, for those that would seek public service, because public service is noble, and following our platform and being a Republican and being proud to be, a Republican, is how this party will grow. We have to have great candidates who see the nobility and the importance of public service, and we have to raise the funds so that it's not just a theory, that we can have an effective party in these elections. As a member of Congress, I will do those things with the grassroots, the elected officials, and with the donors, grassroots, and
We got you.
what's the grassroots, donors, and who? Who am I missing? Elected officials.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Greg. So I pointed
Don't
this.
penalize me. I had a brain. I had a
Late
brain
night
cramp.
television.
Don't
Hey,
take
it-
my time away. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good. It happens. I pointed this out to the last group. There's that camera up there, a couple of other cameras, and this whole room of witnesses. I'm going to hold you all to it when you're elected to help me with the party. So
That clock is more stress. I'm just telling you.
So we did this in the last group. We have a quick round robin, okay? So there's going to be 4 or 5 questions that I'm going to ask you. They're simple yes, no questions. I recognize that there's more context to these. Delegates can talk to you after the fact. I will afford all of you 10 seconds after the questions to give any context that you want. So first question, did the federal government overstep its authority in response to the COVID pandemic? Did the federal government overstep its... This is just all of you.
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody say
Heck
no?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Next question.
Yes.
Everybody, come on.
There we go.
Everybody. Yes, yes.
Second question. Has the United States done enough to support Ukraine, or has it done too much? So first, if you believe that the United States has done enough to support Ukraine, please raise your hand. If you instead believe that the United States has done too much for Ukraine, please raise your hand. Okay. Next question. Is ESG an issue?
Were you going to do context on that?
You will all have up to 10 seconds to talk about anything that you want pertaining to these.
Yeah, it doesn't seem clear, but
Is ESG an issue which should be prioritized, or
Yes.
is it overblown?
Yes, it should be prioritized.
Overblown.
prioritize
taken
and
away.
stopping it?
Overblown,
Prioritize and
right?
stopping
If
it?
you believe
Please
it is,
clarify.
if you believe it,
I don't
needs to be
understand the rules of
prioritized.
this game right now.
No, please clarify.
Just
Is it
enjoy it, Greg. Just
prioritized to
enjoy
keep
it.
it going or get rid of it?
We need to get rid of it.
I
We
hate
need to get rid of it.
It
We all
is
agree.
not a good thing. Let's just be
ESG.
clear.
Yeah.
Okay,
ESG bad.
next question.
This was a good idea, Rob.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. Is election integrity an issue that concerns you, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See?
Do you win if you
You're all
answer
there.
first?
Final question. And then you'll have your 10 seconds if you want it. Bruce, we'll even maybe give you 10 and a half seconds. Do you believe additional gun control is needed to address gun violence in the United States?
No.
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 Okay. Anybody want 10 seconds or 10 and a half for Bruce?
Okay, I on Ukraine, just real quick. Look, I spent a lot of time in Europe with NATO on issues, and I have to just tell you that what people don't understand about Ukraine is that,
Tune in next
we
week.
do not have
There
people
we
on
go.
the
I'm gonna have to-
ground.
I gave you
Just
4
real
seconds. No
quick,
more.
we're destroying the Russian military, and we're not losing any American lives
Okay.
doing it.
I'm gonna
There's
have to cut
value
you
to
off.
that.
Anybody else have any comment that they want to provide in context to any of these questions?
I don't agree with Bruce.
I'll say unaccountability of the billions of dollars that we spent over there has been an atrocity. This has been a war between the United States and Russia, proxy of Ukraine. I've seen it, we all know it, and it's got to stop. We've got millions of people or thousands of people that are dying.
Okay, hold your applause, please. I have to enforce that. Sorry. Yep, Quinn.
Not on Ukraine. The election. You know, if we would just do an audit of our election system and figure out whether it's bad or it's good. I don't care which. I just want to see some transparency through an audit and a third-party audit.
Thank you. Henry, you have something?
Yeah. I just want to say, so 10 seconds is quick, but whose heart doesn't break when they're identifying kids through their DNA after a school shooting? So what we need to do is have mental health, and we need to have access to the state's rights to protect schools. We need law enforcement officers in schools to protect our kids.
Thank you, Henry. Greg, you want to take any time?
No, I didn't agree with Bruce.
Oh, I know. You still technically had 8
And
seconds.
by the way,
so.
it's not the first time.
All righty. Well, candidates, thank you very much for not only providing good comments and good answers to the questions, but even playing the round robin round. We can do that again next week.
Okay. Here we go.
Thank you, delegates, for being here tonight in person. For all of those that are joining us online, a couple of housekeeping pieces. Oh, my goodness, you're right. I think we're all getting tired. But hey, I'll do the closing statements right now. We're starting on the opposite end. So, Henry, you're going to begin, and then we'll jump into that. And thank you, delegates, for reminding me when I'm wrong. So, Henry, time is yours.
Absolutely. The people from the great state of Utah understand what I grew up with, and we can carry that with us where we go, and we can make an impact the Utah way. I'm here to do that. I'm asking for your support in that. I'm here to be your representative. Problems will evolve, new challenges will arise, and it's important to have boots on the ground. And you as delegates are boots on the ground. Meeting with you personally has taught me so many things. Your stories become my stories, and I hope that my stories become your stories. And I will fight for us and for the shared values that we hold. I'm a happy warrior, but I'm on the warpath, and I'm here to fight for you. My kids make me happy, big government makes me mad, and I'm going to defend my family. I'm going to defend my castle, and it's our castle together here in Utah. I'm here to take a stand. I'm asking for your support. We can do this together. I want you to give me good ideas, and I want to go get them done as your representative. Thank you.
We're going backwards, right? Okay. You know, if we're all so much alike, what's the main differences between us? I can tell you one of the main differences between me and everybody else, I know the Constitution, and I commit to follow it. And if a bill is unconstitutional, I will stand against it. That is something that we don't see very often anymore. We need to be able to rely on our elected officials to stand for principles and to stand for the true concepts that our Constitution has given us. They are God-given. We have God-given rights. They're supposed to be Constitution protected. We need to get back to that. It's very important. I ask for your vote. I love all these guys. They're wonderful. But I ask for your vote because we need a constitutional conservative to represent our district. Thank you.
Did y'all forget? Bill Hoster. I'm the guy who came into learning about politics about a year and a half ago, realizing we've got a lot of problems, and we've got a lot of people who are willing to bend on principle of, oh, what is the Tribune going to say about me, or what is this political group going to say about me? No, we've got to have people who are willing to stand up and take those arrows for our kids, for our future, and for today. I can tell you that as a first responder, I was a servant. I didn't care what color your skin was, what religion you were, which one of the two genders you were. I took care of you. I did the same thing. I'm doing the same thing as a mayor. I'm planning to do the same thing as your congressman when I get there. Again, I'm Bill Hoster. Thank you all for coming tonight.
I started by saying 22 grandkids and $32 trillion in debt. It's unsustainable. What we need right now is leadership in Congress. What you want is you want a workhorse, not a show horse. You don't need somebody in front of the camera saying, we need to get this done and get this done, when everybody knows, all 435, that you're never going to get that done because you don't have 60 senators. I'm not going to tell you that we're going to accomplish things that are impossible to accomplish. What I'm going to tell you is there's nobody more prepared in the public sector, the private sector, to work with people one-on-one, small groups, teams, committees, to get them to work together, to get things done. It's all about getting that next inch, not win the war, it's win the skirmish. Win the skirmish, ultimately win the war.
Thank you for tonight. It's been great. I'll just tell you this, when I was on the clock, we fought the drug cartels, illegal and legal, big pharma. We fought the Obamacare expansion. We fought the expansion of and the attempt to take more land away from this state, and we fought back. What happens when you do that? The woke mob, the regime media, the leftist special interests come after you, and what do they deploy? Fear. They put crosses in those at the Capitol to say that we were killing people as we fought against Obamacare expansion. You can think that you can even resolve yourself that you would know what to do when all of that pressure and fear is deployed, because this is why you don't negotiate with terrorists as a country, because if you do, you get more of it. You can think you know what you're going to do in those moments. I can tell you, you don't know till you've lived through it. I know. I've done it. I'm battle tested. I have scars head to toe. I've worked in this field, and I'm telling you, it's a tough place back there. I'll go back there, and I will resist, and I will push back on the fear that seems to be the trade of the swamp. So I appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Now, thank you guys. Very much appreciate all of that. So a couple of quick housekeeping things for all of you delegates. Reminder, on Saturday, you need to be there at 1 p.m. to begin credentialing. By 3 p.m., we will be beginning. And then I would also like to thank all of those who helped pull this off. So Lisa, Bruce, Mari from the 3 different counties, Kane, Iron, and Washington County. Also Dixie Tech and all of their amazing staff. David Kyle and Leslie Carpenter from the Elephant Club for doing a lot of work. Very much appreciate them. And let's give all of our candidates one more hand of applause.
Will the executive committee come up for pictures, please? Executive committee, come up for pictures. Let's give Rob a big hand as well.